October 29th, 1929. In the heart of New York City, beneath the towering skyline, Wall Street is in chaos. Traders are screaming, pushing past each other in desperation. The stock ticker, once a machine of wealth and success, now prints nothing but red ink. It is Black Tuesday, the day the American dream collapsed. In mere hours, $30 billion vanishes from the stock market, more than what the United States spent during World War I. Men who had been millionaires in the morning are penniless by nightfall. And yet, no one realizes the full extent of what has just begun. This is the story of the Great Depression, the greatest financial catastrophe in modern history. A time when banks collapsed, families starved, and the very foundations of capitalism and democracy were shaken to their core. How did it happen? And how did America survive? The Roaring Twenties, a nation on the brink. The 1920s were an era like no other. America had won World War I, and the country was booming with innovation. Automobiles revolutionized transportation. Radios brought entertainment into every home. Electricity turned night into day. A new consumer culture emerged, where Americans were told that happiness could be bought on credit. Banks handed out loans easily, convincing people that debt wasn't a burden, it was freedom. And the stock market? It became the ultimate playground for the rich and poor alike. Stock prices soared, factories produced at record levels. Ordinary workers, many earning just a few dollars a day, poured their savings into stocks, believing prices would rise forever. Newspapers praised the new era of prosperity. Even President Herbert Hoover declared, "We in America are nearer to the final triumph over poverty than ever before in the history of any land." But beneath the glittering surface, cracks were forming. Factories were overproducing. Farmers were drowning in debt. Stock speculation ran out of control. It was only a matter of time before reality caught up. The crash of 1929. The day the music died. By October 1929, fear was beginning to creep into the market. Stock prices began to dip. At first, investors ignored it. But then, on Black Thursday, October 24th, panic erupted. Banks started calling in loans. Investors scrambled to sell their stocks, but no one was buying. The richest men on Wall Street lost millions overnight. And then came Black Tuesday, October 29th. In one single day, the stock market suffered its worst crash in history. 16 million shares were dumped at record lows. Fortunes vanished in seconds. But this wasn't just a Wall Street disaster. This was an economic earthquake, and its aftershocks would shake the entire world. The human cost, a nation in despair. By 1932, America had become a land of hunger and despair. Over 13 million Americans were unemployed, a staggering 25% of the workforce. Factories sat silent. Farms lay abandoned. Ordinary families lost everything overnight. Some lived in tent cities, called Hoovervilles, after President Hoover, a man now seen as the face of failure. Fathers left home, ashamed, unable to provide for their families. Children went to bed hungry, too weak to play. In some places, schools closed because teachers weren't being paid. The wealthiest country in the world had become a nation of beggars. But in the countryside, a new horror was unfolding. The Dust Bowl, a land without hope. The Great Depression wasn't just an economic disaster, it became an environmental catastrophe. Farmers, desperate to increase production, had overplowed the land. Then, the rains stopped, and the soil turned to dust. Giant black clouds swept across the Midwest. Farms were buried under sand-like storms. Livestock choked and died. People called it the Dust Bowl, and for thousands of farm families, It was the end. More than 2.5 million people fled the Dust Bowl, heading for California, the land of promise. But when they arrived, they were met with hatred. Locals saw them as unwanted refugees, calling them Okies and Arkies. Some found work, but most found more suffering. For these Americans, there was no way out. The rise of Franklin D. Roosevelt. Then came Franklin Delano Roosevelt. His message was simple. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. FDR gave America hope, but hope wasn't enough. Action was needed. FDR launched the New Deal, one of the boldest government programs in history. For the first time, the federal government took responsibility for the economy. The legacy of the Great Depression. The Great Depression forever changed America. Social Security still protects millions. Stock market regulations prevent crashes. The government plays a key role in economic recovery. The past is never truly gone, and history has a way of repeating itself. Will we be ready next time? From darkness, a nation was reborn. But at what cost? Subscribe for more history, because to understand the present, we must uncover the past.